Hello and welcome to this episode of the No Gimmicks Just Sweat podcast. First, thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram at No Gimmicks Just Sweat. No Gimmicks Just Sweat was started to showcase people from all walks of life sharing their particular fitness journey. Everyone has a different story, and everyone has a different reason behind their journey. Hopefully these stories will not only inspire you, but also help you aspire to heights you've never thought possible. Again, thank you for listening, and now, let's get it started. Hello, and welcome to the No Gimmicks Just Sweat podcast. And today we have Lali Castellanos. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yes. How are you doing?
Great job. Great job. I'm doing really good. I'm a little bit sore and incredibly sunburned after yesterday's Texas 70.3, but I could not be more excited and happy to be as sore and as sunburned as I am today.
It's good sore, good sunburn.
It is a good sore. It's a bad sunburn, but I'm happy about it. The kids at school, so I work at an elementary school, and the kids at school were like, what is wrong with you? What happened? Because, I have like the sock tan and the shorts tan and because I was wearing a sleeved kit. So I have an arm tan. I look ridiculous.
All right. So what we always do to get started is kind of go through some icebreaker questions.
Sure.
I'll put some questions out there for you and, answer the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Oh, gosh. Okay. I feel like I'm on a game show.
Hey, there you go.
And I'm super competitive, so be forewarned.
Okay. But there's no prize money at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, I quit. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Morning training or evening training?
Evening training every time.
All right. Cardio or strength?
Cardio.
All right. Run on a treadmill or run outside?
Ooh. Treadmill.
Really?
Yeah.
You are the first person that has said treadmill.
Yeah, well, let me tell you. So, typically, it depends on where I'm at. So, I live in a neighborhood where I've had a couple of encounters as a female that trains at night alone.
Right.
I need to be very careful. So, I actually invested in a treadmill this year. So if I had a choice where it was, at the perfect time of day where I felt really safe, then I would choose outside every time. But right now with the training that I do at night, like I said, as a female, it's about safety. So right. I train on the treadmill.
Completely understandable.
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. Ride inside on Zwift or ride outside?
Outside. I don't actually have Zwift.
Don't feel bad.
Okay. Good.
I tried it out one time and I was like, I'd rather be outside.
So technically, this season, because COVID changed everything. So yes. Training for Ironman 70.3, for Texas 70.3, I mostly trained inside because of COVID, because I was afraid of getting into an accident and ending up at the hospital, because I did crash about a year ago. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it happened right as closure was about to happen. It happened in February of, what year is this? 2021. So it was February of 2020. And after that crash, and once everything started shutting down in March, I was like, I got really lucky that this happened when it did, and I didn't end up at urgent care with COVID patients.
Yes.
So yeah. So mostly was inside, but if I had a choice, I would be outside.
Okay. All right. Favorite segment in a triathlon: swim, bike, or run?
Ooh. Typically it's the swim, and I don't typically like the bike, but I really enjoyed my bike ride yesterday. So now I'm torn. Am I becoming a cyclist? What's going on with me?
You're evolving. You're growing.
I guess, but typically I do love the swim. So where most people get a little bit nervous about getting into the water, because most people have that anxiety about open water.
Yes.
I love open water swim.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. If you can go on a swim, a run, a bike ride, or train with anyone, famous? It could be a celebrity, it can be an athlete, or just anyone, dead or alive. Who would it be?
Oh, this is a hard one. Oh, I would probably, I'd probably go on a, oh, this is so hard. So I have some real big girl crushes that are athletes. Um, so probably Kara Goucher.
Okay.
I'd probably go on a run with Kara Goucher. She, I have followed her for a long time on social media, and she's so relatable and down to earth. And I actually met her husband at the Houston Chevron, the marathon,
Oh, okay.
and I'm a I'm a bad fangirl. I'm like, it's shameful. So like, I remember yelling just randomly at these older men that were, I mean, for the record, he's not old. It was him and an older gentleman crossing the road. And I was like, way to go, random strangers crossing the street, because we had been yelling at runners. And they ended up right next to us. And I was like, oh my gosh, Katie. And she said, what? I said, that's Adam Goucher. She goes, I don't know who that is. That's Kara Goucher's husband. She was like, how do you know that? Because I stalk them. So we ended up talking with him and taking photos. So yeah, I would have to say Kara Goucher. She's so great, and her family, like, they appear to be such normal, great people. Well, they are, because I met Adam. So yeah.
Cool, cool. Last
Hmm.
one. Your dream location to go for a run or a bike ride. Anywhere in the world.
Oh, for a run or a bike ride. I would not choose a bike ride, so that eliminates that. I would pick a run. Honestly, I would probably pick a trail run somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Um, oh, you know what would be really dope would be to run the Barkley Marathon route, but with a guide so I don't
Oh,
get
okay. That's what
lost.
I was going to say. I was like,
With
really?
with a guide and without a time limit, and maybe just, enjoy the day with a picnic, like,
Right.
it would probably be that, because it's so famous, right? It's world famous. So
Yes.
I think that would be really, really great to be able to, but one of my sorority sisters said I could get lost in a box. So that's why I said I'd probably need a guide, because I would totally get lost.
All right. So, one of the things we always start off here on the show with is your story. And when I say your story, it's how did you get to where you are today? Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has a story. And I always, kind of say, think of it as you're a superhero with your origin story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. So where I am right now, and so there's a couple of, oh gosh, there's a couple of ways I can take this. I'm going to try to synthesize all of it, because I think of things like, how did I get to where I'm at personally? How did I get to where I am professionally? And how did I get to where I am athletically? So
Okay.
I'm going to try to package it all together really well. I'm crossing my fingers. So I'm going to take us back to about 2009. I was in graduate school. I was like right in the middle of my graduate program. And I was traveling. I had a new position as an academic facilitator. And it was a position as an academic facilitator on an elementary campus with about 600 kids, kinder through third grade. And we also inherited a behavior unit. So that was a challenge, because we didn't really know what we were doing with, how to manage behavior. Extreme behaviors is what I want to say. And academically, I was trying to lead an entire campus to turn our campus around academically, and move us in the right direction, um, with some of our systems. And I was under a lot of stress, and I think a lot of athletes will identify with this. When we encounter that much stress, we have one of two choices, or maybe even three, but we can go to counseling, take medication, kind of to handle the physiological aspects of being under so much stress, right? Or we can take to running, to cycling, to swimming, to, CrossFit, some sort of physical
Right.
activity to kind of release all that stress. Or then we can do a combination of both, because some of my very good friends, they have to do both because they have a clinical level of stress, anxiety, depression. So there's 3 different ways you can kind of handle it. Depression runs in my family, and I've been able to manage my depression through activity and manage my stress through physical activity. So in the middle of my graduate program, I was like, I need to do something about this. Like, it's just overwhelming me. So I started running. I did short distance. I did a 5K, and it was the best experience I ever had. And after that 5K, it was a local small potatoes 5K that the local high school put together to raise money for their, various clubs and organizations. I got a t-shirt, so I thought that was the coolest thing because I'd never done a race before. And so like, sadly I don't have that t-shirt anymore, but I got a free t-shirt. Right. They didn't have medals, so I didn't understand what the medal thing was about yet. But I crossed the finish line, and it was something that I had really focused on physically for myself the first time ever. So I felt really accomplished. Like I did a C to 5K, couch to 5K program, loaded it into my little tiny Apple Nano or whatever it was that we used to use that was like an inch by an inch, And so, so I was hooked after that 5K. And so from then I was like, I need to do something more difficult. So I committed to doing 5Ks every month, for a good portion of a year. And then I moved to a half marathon, and I signed up with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's team in training, and had some coaches, met some people. It was a good experience. Raised my funds for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and crossed the finish line. So once I got done with the half, I did another half and another half and another half. And about that time, through the process of, 2009 to 2010, 2010 is when I did my first half marathon, graduated with my master's degree. And I also moved up career-wise to a principal's position.
Okay.
And so it was, a natural progression for everything. Physical, like my training, my athlete life, my athlete path, my personal path was to come in a little bit, but my professional path as well, right? So going through all these changes in what appeared to be a short period of time, it really started to expose a lot of difficulties that my then husband and I were having. And, I was becoming a lot stronger and more independent. And, we just didn't mesh, after a while. And he's a great guy. We're still friends to this day. We talk to each other once or twice a year around our birthdays. So it was a very amicable split, but it was just one of those where we knew that this is not what we needed anymore. We just weren't going to make it work. And so divorce at any level, I think, is difficult. We didn't have kids, but it was still a really painful process. So, of course, knowing that depression runs in my family, and I was under a huge amount of stress because I now have this new administrator's job, like I really needed to focus on the physical aspect of training and really diving deep into that, just to kind of keep myself at a good spot. And my marathon coach at the time was like, you really should try triathlon. And I was like, what? She said, I think you really needed to give triathlon a try. Like, I really think you would enjoy it. And I was like, Mary Kay, I haven't been on a bike since I was 10, and I was 40-ish at the time, a little bit over 40. And I was like, I just don't know if that's going to work for me. So she was like, no, I really think you should just come out, learn about it. It was through team and training as well, because she would rotate between marathon coaching and triathlon coaching. Um, and she goes, and she knew, like my coaches knew what I was going through at the time personally. So she said, listen, like I worry about you. And, I think this is going to be a great focus for you. I think it's going to be a good outlook. I mean, a good focus. It's going to be a good outlet. I really want you to do this, just to keep yourself in a good spot, work out all the stress.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, fine. I went reluctantly to the info meeting, and because I'm such a lemming, I was like, okay, let's do it. So I didn't own a bike. I I took a swim class in college, but I was not a competitive swimmer. I didn't know anything about open water swimming, but I did grow up near South Padre Island, so we used to vacation. Well, I say vacation, but I would actually go visit my cousin Brenda, my cousin Beto, and her family. So I'd go hang out, and they lived close to South Padre. So I would go hang out there for about a week or two in the summers, and we'd go to the beach and just frolic and kind of piddle around in the water, thinking like I was a swimmer. So I had, even though I didn't have formal training, I a little bit knew how to manage myself in open water is what I should say. So I thought, how hard can that be? I did not realize how bad I was going to be at the bike. Um, so I just went ahead and just kind of dove in like I do pretty much everything because it's a challenge. I'd never done it before. It was hard. It was difficult. It was very difficult, very hard for me. And it was more of a mind over matter type of challenge because my body could physically do it, but I had such fear of the unknown getting involved in triathlon. So go through that whole process, start out with a sprint, and move my way up like I did everything else, professionally from a teacher up to an administrator, athletically from a 5K to a half marathon. Finally ran my first full marathon. And after I did that, coupled with spectating at Ironman Texas, because we had some team members from Team in Training doing Ironman Texas. So we went out to spectate. I was like, I can do this. Like, I looked at athletes that looked like me, and I thought, if I train hard enough, I can do this.
Right.
And so I was hooked at the atmosphere, and I wanted to know what it felt like to have that type of accomplishment under my belt, right? So ridiculously, I was like, I'm going to totally sign up for this event. So I actually signed up for Ironman Arizona. And it was very anticlimactic when I signed up. So, typically for your listeners that don't know about triathlon, specifically Ironman, when you volunteer at a race. So, for example, I did my race in 2017. But if I had volunteered at Ironman Arizona in 2016, I get an early dibs sign up link to sign up for Ironman Arizona. So whatever event that I volunteered at, if it was a different race, what have you, I would have had an early registration link. And then they open it up to everybody else, right?
Okay.
So I did not know that trick, and I did not volunteer at Ironman Arizona. So knowing that it typically would sell out rather quickly, I sat by my computer and hit refresh for about an hour and a half. Refresh, 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 waiting for the registration to open. So like I'm terrified because I know what I'm about to get into, kind of. So I'm sitting there with my credit card, and finally opens, and I remember my hands shaking and my heart was pounding, and it tells you have like 15 minutes, I think, to register, and then you'll get timed out. So I remember I was like frantically typing everything. 15 minutes is a really long time, but I felt like it was going by so fast. So I typed everything, hit enter, put my payment information and everything in there and hit enter. But I think in my haste, I I closed the window before it actually gave me a congratulatory, you signed up for the event.
Wow.
So I was like, so am I in? Like, what am I in? Like, what's going on? Did I get in? Did I miss it? Did I exit too early? Like, what happened? So I opened my email that I linked to the account, and that's where I had the congratulatory email. And so I was like, oh no, what have I done? So I immediately called this girlfriend of mine that had signed up for Ironman Texas in 27 for 2017. Mind you, it's 2016, right? Is when I sign up. 2016? Yes, November of 2016 is when I signed up. So I remember calling Linda or sending her a text message, and I was like, Linda, oh my God, you're never going to guess what I just did. She was like, what? I said, I signed up for Ironman Arizona. She goes, oh my God, we can train together. Because, like I said, she was doing Texas and super excited, blah, 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 blah. I had no idea how challenging that was going to be. But in the process of signing up for 2017, I also signed up for a couple of halves, 70.3 distances, and just really committed to this one race. And like that whole season just really, really changed me um, in such profound ways. Um, Professionally, I went through some changes that I didn't expect. So there were a couple of setbacks and changes there, and I didn't really know how to process any of that. So I dove into my Ironman Texas training. And then, so again, that's in 2016. And then personally, I was involved with someone. We ended up breaking up that particular year, and it was a really hard breakup. And again, I just was so thankful that I had my Ironman training to focus. And it just kind of, I want to say, like, dredged up a lot of those feelings that I had that I went through with my divorce. So where I thought that I had kind of dealt with some things, like I realized that I hadn't. And so being in this really intense training program and being on these long training rides for hours and hours and running cycles for long periods of time, like it gave me a lot of alone think time. And your athletes, I think, would identify with this too, where like you just really break yourself down mentally and physically when you train. And it really clears the cobwebs, is the best way for me to explain it. So I had a really huge personal growth type of season during, Ironman 17 season, the training season. And um, so thankful for that. And I just really stayed on that trajectory after. And it really has kind of landed me here at this moment, where I've not ever gone back to marathon training and just running training. I don't want to say just, like, it's not a big deal because it's so taxing on your body. But I've not ever been able to go back to a solitary sport because this particular type of training, this particular type of sport is, I think, more a mental challenge than truly a physical challenge, because you cross train naturally, right? With swim, bike, and run. It's a natural cross training program. So you're in the best shape of your life, really. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. But more than anything, it's a mental push for me to get through my biggest fear, which is cycling.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, so that's kind of how I've landed where I'm at.
Oh, okay, okay. So one of the things, and you mentioned that you are an educator, principal, correct?
Yes. Well, I'm now a testing coordinator, but
Okay.
yes.
So how do you fit training into your life? And the reason why
Ooh.
I asked that,
Mm-hmm.
my mom was a teacher, my aunts, my cousins, my wife. I know everything that you have to deal with as a teacher, and with you
Mm-hmm.
being an administrator, you had to deal with that, then some.
Sure.
So a lot of times we have, just I'm doing air quotes right now. The non-teachers, we have enough, you know, going on to find time to train with our jobs,
Right.
but it can
Right.
only imagine what you have to go through to try to fit in a proper amount of training, into your lifestyle.
No.
So how do you do
So one of the things I know is what I learned through my 2017 season is I really learned that my job was not my definition of who I am. And that was a hard lesson because I'd been a teacher since 2002 and it was now 2016, 2017, right? And I literally had an epiphany where I was like, I've spent my entire career identifying myself as my career. I am a teacher. Like, Lali, tell us about yourself. I'm a teacher. That's what would always come out first. I'm a teacher. I'm a wife. I'm a this, I'm a that. I sing in choir at church, blah, blah, blah. But what always came out first was I'm a teacher. And in going through that particular season of Ironman training, where I, like I said, I had a really difficult bump in the road, if you will, professionally. And I learned not to identify myself that way any longer. I learned that I'm more than just that, if that makes sense. So, I was like, so people ask me, like, who are you? I'll say, well, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm a cousin, I work in education, I am involved in my church, I'm a triathlete. I define myself differently now. And because I've defined myself differently now, I learned to push things that I know I can get done during the day at school for school, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so it freed up my evenings by a lot. But then you have to make the commitment if you're going to train like that, okay, you know what? I can't go out to the bar. Yes, I know you want to go to dinner and hang out with friends, but guess what? I have training. I have to go to the pool, or I have to go sit on a trainer for an hour and a half. I have to, do all of these particular things. So you really have to have a really understanding community around you if they're not athletes. My best friend is she runs, but she doesn't train at the extent that I do. And she and I hadn't seen each other in a while. So she was like, hey, let's get together and go have lunch. And I was like, she goes, what do you have? I was like, I have a 2-hour run. She's like, how about you start your run and then I'll meet you and I'll run for about 30 minutes. And then after we get done, we can go have brunch. So she worked around my schedule, so that's kind of how I fit it all in. I learned to prioritize, and, work was not it for me anymore. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, what does a week of training look like for you?
Oh man. Here recent, it's kind of been really bad because I've been sick. So I sound like, I sound really raspy, and I normally don't sound raspy, but, so my training has looked really sad, but typically I would train about 6 days a week. So I have to do it by days of the week. So Monday, my week always started on Monday. So Monday I had was a rest day. Tuesday I would do let me think about this. I would do a swim on Tuesday, a bike on Wednesday, a run on Thursday, a swim on Friday, a bike run, or for those that don't understand, we call it a brick. So it's a bike run on Saturday, and then Sunday I would do a long run, and then Monday I would have off. So it's, some combination therein, but it's literally come home, dog mom, because I have a dog, and, do all the things for him because he's home alone, while I'm at work. So spend time with him, do stuff with him, and then, maybe prep dinner. I'm pretty bad about that too, because I live by myself. So if I feed myself, great. And if not, it's not a terrible thing. I'm a bad athlete. Do not do what I do. And then, and then I'll jump on the treadmill for an hour, hour and a half, 45 minutes, something like that. Same thing with a bike on a different day, go to the pool for a swim. By the time I come home, it's late. So it's time to shower and go to bed. So it doesn't leave much time for much of anything else. It's very sad.
So Oh, it's not your downtime.
Yes, that's one way to look at it. I'm very dedicated.
So it sounds like you're a self-coach,
So
or do you have a
right, so I used to get coached. I've been coached quite a few times. It depends on um the magnitude of the event. So I've learned that if I signed up for a full, I need the accountability and I need the structure of a coach. With my 70.3s, I've kind of learned, what works for me and what hasn't because I've done so many now. Like yesterday was my fifth 70.3 race. Um, but I'm now a an ambassador for CORE, and as an ambassador, I'm lucky enough to get a coaching plan, and so I can load it into Training Peaks. I just follow it, rearrange it if I need to rearrange it. But because like I said, I've done this so many times, I kind of already know what's going to work out, and I feel like for at least right now, I'm better at making those types of decisions. But if I find that I start slacking, that's when I pretty much will reach out and search for a coach.
okay? So speaking of 70.3,
Yes,
you recently
I
had one.
did.
So how was it?
It was the best day ever for having DNF'd my race. So for your listeners that don't know, DNF is did not finish, but I actually finished the mileage. So with every event in an Ironman sanctioned triathlon, there are time limits. So there's a time limit for the swim, time limit for the bike, and a time limit for the run. Total altogether for a half, you have to be done in 8.5 hours. For the swim itself, you have to be done in an hour and 10 minutes. Anything over that, you get disqualified basically. Now, depending on how close you are to that cutoff time, they could theoretically let you continue because they don't really know specifically the actual to the minute time because you have racers coming in and out and there's such chaos and they just kind of go, okay, you're close, but go and finish. And if the time registers, then great. If not, obviously you find out in the tracker like I did. So I was the last one out of the water yesterday. It was the most difficult open water swim I have ever done in my whole life. Mind you, I told you when getting into the water, like I'm not a nervous swimmer. Like I feel incredibly proficient in water. But my swim, again, you need to get done in an hour and 10 minutes. I got done in an hour, 12 minutes and some odd seconds. So I was 2 minutes and something seconds over. But because I was in that chaos of coming in and out of the water, they literally said, you're the last one. So anybody behind me, they cut off and didn't let them continue. And I ended up going through transition, getting onto the bike, going through transition again, getting onto the run, and getting across the finish line. So total, I got done in 8 hours and 4 minutes and something seconds. So the longevity of the race I did in the amount of time that's allotted, but that technical part, which was the swim, is what DNF'd me. And so it was the best day because I got to see a lot of people that we've been kind of social media friends for a long time, and we meet each other in person. You and I kind of talked about it before we started recording that, like, one day we'll probably see each other at a race and finally see each other in real life, right?
Right.
And that's how a lot of my friendships have kind of developed in the triathlon world, as we followed each other on social media and then we one day met in real life. And so this was, after a year and a half of not racing, this was for a lot of us our first day back to racing. And it was the toughest conditions. The swim was like a washing machine. The
Oh,
bike ride was so incredibly windy. On the way out, I found myself going 20 something miles an hour, which again, I'm not good at the bike. So going 20 something miles an hour was super fun for me. But then I made the turnaround at the halfway point and hit a wall of wind. And I thought, this is why I was going so fast. But I worked really hard to get through that, got onto the run, worked really hard to get through the run. And it was very slow. And labored and painful because I just, mind you, I hadn't trained in a couple of weeks. But I could not have been more excited for yesterday's DNF because I got to see so many people. I was reminded clearly why I do triathlon, specifically Ironman events. And it was a reminder of what it can be again, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So yeah, it was really the worst race I've ever had, conditions wise, but the best feeling I've ever had during a race. And that even supersedes my Ironman day. Because it was just that wanting to get back to racing and that excitement of seeing so many of my true friends and that have become family to me. It was just, oh my gosh, I was emotional. I crossed the finish line and I cried. I was that emotional.
So what you're saying is you had fun.
I had a blast. It was so, I'm telling you, there's a video that I posted on my Instagram page, on my feed that talked about that. It was just, the day was just so magical. That's the best way that I could describe it. It was really great.
And that's what matters. That is the most important thing.
That is the most important thing for me. Because let me tell you why. I'm never going to podium. I already know I don't like the bike. I get through the bike to get to the run. So having a podium. So this is a funny story. When I went to check in, Eric, it was really funny. I walk in and I'm wearing, just a sleeveless tank top and shorts and flip flops and my core team visor. And I walk into the tent for packet pickup, and the greeter looks at me and she goes, "Hi, good morning." And I said, "Hi, how are you?" She goes, "I'm fantastic. Are you a pro?" Oh my God. I laughed so hard and so loud for a long time. She was so confused. And I was like, I swear to God, that is the sweetest thing anyone has ever told me in my whole entire life. And she was like, I take it you're not a pro. I was like, girl, not even close. So anyway, I told her, I said, the only way that I would ever win an event is if everybody before me got abducted by aliens. I'm just telling you that right now. So we had a good laugh about it. But really, because I know that that's not my motivation. My motivation is not to podium. It really has never been my motivation. I was telling my fiance this too. My motivation is to see people that I know, that I care about, and make connections and build relationships with them.
Okay. So this is kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
So what is your proudest moment as an athlete? And at the same time, what is your worst moment as an athlete?
Ooh, that's a great one. We just talked about failures today at school. Our leadership team meets every Monday, and we're in the middle of a book study. And our chapter today talked about giving kids the opportunity to fail and what to do with that. So this is a really, really applicable question because we talked about it today. My biggest failure. Oh, I can tell you. So I'm real big on getting myself to a point where I can mentally overcome things. There is nothing so difficult in life that it cannot be overcome. Mentally is what I always tell myself. Right. No matter the challenge, you can put yourself in a good mindset. It might be hard. It might be super difficult to get there, but it can be done. It's a matter of choice, right? So, but this one event, it was called the Tiny Texas Try, and it was local. They don't have it, they don't hold it anymore, but I think this might have been the last year that they had it. But I was on the bike ride again with the bike, and I had the sweeper behind me. So I had the police officer behind me, and he would pass me and then park on the side of the road, and then I would pass him, and then he would rev up his bike and then pass me, park on the side of the road. So it was like this game of leapfrog, right? So the cop car, then me, then the cop motorcycle, then me, the cop motorcycle, then me. And it was just starting to get into my brain. And I thought, this is not worth it. Like, I'm just not good at this. Like, I'm never going to finish this bike ride. I'm never going to finish this race. I'm so far behind. I'm in last place. They're going to pick me up. They're going to drive me in. Like, I just, I got into my own head, and I got into that space that just, I could not pull myself out of it. And so I finally pulled over, and the truck that collects, I call it the truck of shame, but the truck of shame that collects all the bikes of the people that didn't finish was behind me. He was behind the motorcycle. So finally I pull over, and I was about to go up this one long stretch that was, for me, it seemed like Mount Everest. It was a huge hill. And I had done it during training season, so I knew I could get up the hill. It was just going to take me about 12 and a half years is what I felt like. So I pull over at the base of the hill, and I turn around, and I like flag the person, the truck behind me. I was like, just hurry up and get over here. So he pulls up next to me, and I was like, I can't anymore. I said, you guys being behind me this whole time is driving me crazy. And if it's going to be like this until I get onto the run, like, I'm just done. And the guy tells me there is no shame in quitting. And I thought,
Really?
I said, in my brain, I said, you have no idea what that means to someone like me. Like, absolutely not. And at that moment, I swore to myself that I would never quit a race ever again, that I would be pulled off the road, kicking and screaming. They'd have to call the cops to come and get me off the road, because I would never quit another race again. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was just so disappointed in myself for allowing that to happen. That was my biggest failure as an athlete, I feel like, because I quit. And I hate to even admit that, but that was my biggest failure. My biggest success kind of was along those same lines, was at Ironman Texas, again, the bike. And I had experienced a lot of challenges up to that point. So when I did my swim at Ironman Arizona, I apologize, my full, I got kicked in the face on the swim.
Ooh.
And one of my lenses on my goggle filled up with water. But I was so close to the finish, I thought, I don't know what my time is, right, on the swim, because I don't really use a watch on the swim, because I can't really stop and look at it. So I don't ever set my watch for the triathlon part. So I just kept swimming, just with one eye closed. And I swam, and I got done. I get into transition, and the volunteer brings me my transition bag. And I'm getting dressed, I'm putting everything on. I put my helmet on, and it's got that little nozzle in the back, the little button to tighten it. And when I tightened it, it broke. Like, it was just in pieces. Like, it literally crumbled. And I thought, oh my God, my helmet's broken. I'm not going to be able to do this race. Like, I didn't get kicked in the eye and finish my swim just to DNF on a broken helmet.
Right.
So, like, I wanted to start crying. And so the volunteer shook me out of my daze, and she found some electrical tape. We taped my helmet back together. It was loose. Like, they probably should not have let me go, because it probably was not safe.
Yeah.
But I was super determined. Like, she goes, do you think you can do the bike? I was like, yes, I just won't crash. And I ran out of the tent, right? And I'm so slow. It's not like I was going to crash anyway. Like, if I crashed, it was probably going to be so slow motion that I could probably, like, stand up and avoid crashing. So I get onto the bike, and, I go up the beeline. It's super windy, and I hate life because it's wind in my face, but wind at my back. So I'm going 30 miles an hour down the hill. But on my third loop, because it's a 3-loop course, on my third loop, I made the mistake of downshifting on a small overpass, like a little bridge. And you know that if you downshift on a little hill like that, your chain can drop. Yeah. So my chain dropped, and I've never had that happen before. And I was on my my brand new to me shiny triathlon, tri bike. So I don't know anything about my bike. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to do anything. But my chain dropped and then it twisted like over each other. So I tried to undo it. I couldn't, and I started to cry because I was like, I got kicked in the eye and my helmet is broken, and now this is how I'm going to DNF. Well, somebody stopped and undid the chain for me, and I stopped at the bike mechanic tent thing. He said everything was fine, that I made the cutoff, like go ahead and go and just pedal, don't stop, don't do anything. So as I'm coming into Ironman Village, I'm on this bike for 1,000 years, and it's been so long that I can't see through my sunglasses. Well, it's because the sun was going down. It was like nighttime.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's how long I'd been at this, like forever. So I put my sunglasses in my kit. I'm pedaling, and I feel like I'm going fast, but I'm probably going 5 miles an hour. And so I kept telling myself, this friend of mine named Jay, he was like, Lali, you only have to average 13 point something miles an hour, like 13 and a half miles an hour, 13 and 3/4, something like that. And he goes, and if you can maintain that on your bike, you'll make it. Just trust me. So I kept telling myself that over and over, like, don't quit. Just, you have to go this percentage, right? This mile an hour percentage, whatever. Well, I get close to Ironman Village and the truck of shame goes by. Mind you, remember my experience with that Olympic that I pulled myself out of. The truck of shame goes by, and I like have all the feels, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this again. They're going to have to like literally drag me off my bike in order. So I start formulating a plan, Eric, and it was the dumbest thing. I'm on this bike and I'm like, I've been out there all day, and I'm probably hallucinating, but I was like, okay, if they come at me, I'm going to go really fast and they're just going to miss me. But I started thinking, but you've been at this for 8 hours or however many hours it was. I was like, and you're going to probably be too tired to do that. So they're probably going to catch you. So that's not going to work. So I keep pedaling and I'm formulating. Okay, if they come at me, I'll just go really wide on my bike. So they're going to have to really run to catch me. And so I was like, but I'm so tired. Like, I know I'm not going to do that either. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to like run right into them. And if I run right into them, I'll knock them down and I'll just keep. So this is like where I'm at mentally, right? So I get close to the truck because it parks at the entrance with all the bikes already in the back because they had picked up so many people. So I get closer and closer, and I literally, because the truck was on my left, I literally close my left eye. I tilt my head to like facing the right, and I think to myself, if I don't look at it, they won't see me. That's literally like I reverted to like a 5-year-old. If I close my eyes, they won't see me. So I just kept pedaling, and I was like, please don't get me, please don't get me, please don't stop me, please don't stop me. And I made it. And then I make it to Ironman Village, and they take my bike, and I run up the small hill into transition, and I'm cutting jokes because that's just what I do. And she tells me, you have 10 minutes to get onto the run, or you're going to DNF, and they're not going to let you start the marathon. So I want to cry so bad, but instead I have a 4-minute transition. But all of that to say that was my biggest accomplishment, was overcoming all of those things during that race, and not pulling myself out, and not quitting, and not giving up, and learning that I am stronger than I could ever give myself credit for, mentally and physically.
Yes, you are. All right, so let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about swim, bike, run for equality.
Yes, let's talk about that.
I know what it is, but share with the listeners what it is.
I'd love to. So Swim, Bike, Run for Equality is now officially a foundation. We are applying for our 501c nonprofit status with the federal government. In the state of Texas, we have our nonprofit status, but we'd like to operate nationally, so we're going through that process. But we're officially an organization that has been established to really promote equality through sport. Our board is comprised of triathletes. Our Facebook page, our membership page, currently it's a private page. And that reminds me, this week I actually need to make a foundation page. But the members in our group, we have about 1,800. They're athletes of varying abilities. So we have, walkers, we have CrossFit people, we have swimmers, cyclists, runners, triathletes, equestrians. We have disabled, non-disabled athletes, people of color. And the page, the group was created, the page was created when our vice president, Kelly Worrell, it happened, she called Mike Smith, he's the president of our foundation. Kelly called Michael pretty close to, if not immediately after George Floyd. We had gone through Ahmaud Arbery's murder, and as athletes, we all committed to, run with Maud. And I say that in air quotes because that's a hashtag, right? That everybody committed to, because it was so tragic what happened to this young man with such promise. And then, everybody watched the video and were just mortified by what they saw. Then George Floyd happens, and it's just like, it felt like one thing after another. As a Latina, I felt like it was one thing after another, after another, after another, that was just happening over and over and over. And it was just so overwhelming, And Kelly, who's white, she's a para athlete. Her right arm is underdeveloped. So she qualifies as a para athlete, nationally ranked, an amazing triathlete, so fast. So her and Mike were teammates on Dare to Try. So Kelly and Mike are very good friends, and she called him up and was, asking, like, first she checked in to see how he was doing, because she was very worried about him. And as I think a lot of people of color at that time were just enraged, right? And with what was going on and what they were witnessing. And at the same time, they're like, but this is not a surprise. Like, if you've been paying a second of attention to any of this, none of this is a surprise. So it's sadness and rage and disappointment and just all of those types of feelings, wrapped up in one. So Kelly reaches out to him to check up on him. And then they start having a very candid, honest, and very raw conversation about white privilege. They had a very candid conversation about what it's like to be an athlete, what it's like to be a man of color in this country, specifically a Black man in this country. And for your listeners that don't know, that's Michael Smith. You can find him online or on social media, Michael Dream Chaser Smith. And he will just openly talk with people who will listen about his experiences. And so he and Kelly had a very uncomfortable conversation. And she said, well, what can I do to make things better? And that's such a broad kind of question, but Kelly genuinely meant it. Like, what do I need to do in my community or my little circle that is going to make an impact for people of color? Because she genuinely just didn't know, and she didn't want it to come off as like inauthentic and contrived. So they started talking, and then they kind of threw an idea around where they would put a virtual race together and raise money and donate it to a cause of some kind. And they were like, yeah, but everybody's doing virtual races right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, everybody's doing a virtual race. It's just going to get lost in like all of these races, right? So they wanted to create something and a place where people could get together and have those types of conversations that Kelly and Mike had, in a place that was safe, in a place that was going to be educational, in a place that was going to be non-judgmental, in a place that was going to be forward thinking. It doesn't necessarily have to be positive, because there's nothing positive about what's going on in our country when it comes to race, but they wanted people to come to this group to be solutions based and forward thinking. And Kelly was like, well, how do we do that? You know, if we want to create a page, like, how does that happen? And Mike and I have been very close for a long time. And he called me, and he knows that my short stint, part of my short stint at central office with my school district was to, I was a coordinator of public relations. So I have some background in PR, marketing, and social media. So he gave me a call, and he was like, hey, I have a project for you. And he gave me the elevator speech of what he and Kelly talked about. And I said, oh yeah, that's easy. Like, I can do that for you guys. And he was like, okay, this is what we want it to look like. So it was a lot of back and forth conversation about getting this page started, and the purpose, and do we want it public or private, and how many people, and do you have security questions, like literally all those nuances of starting a Facebook page. And we had a deadline. And if anybody knows Mike, they know that he is sometimes he's real quick to pull a trigger. So he like started putting people in the group before it was even ready, and we were like, ah! So I had to go in and finalize everything in like a matter of 30 minutes. It was pretty funny. Like, we laugh about it. But he's just so passionate about this platform and bringing people into it to have difficult conversations. The most recent like conversation that we've been having is trans people in sports, and trans rights, because Amber Morgan is one of our members, and she's a huge advocate for trans rights in sports. And so everything in our group is really sports related. And the reason that it's sports related is because that's our world. That's where we live. Like I said, the people in the group, they're athletes at varying degrees, but they're all athletes. And we started having conversations about specifically triathlon, because like I said, we're all triathletes on the board. And it's, if you're a triathlete, especially a triathlete of color, you don't really find many people that look like you.
Yeah.
A Latina doing Ironman is still not that common. It's more common now. Well, first, females doing Ironman wasn't as common as it is now. Second, a female of color is not common. And if you're a female of color that's specifically Black, you'll find even less women in the sport. So we've really committed ourselves to showcasing and bringing attention to the need for diversifying triathlon for us specifically, but just sports in general. And how do we do that? Like, we start having courageous conversations, learning about the things that we face as athletes, being real with each other, and then committing to steps to make it better. And so those steps for us at Swim Back Run for Equality include providing scholarships, scholarship and grant opportunities for, really, they're grant opportunities for athletes. Right now in 2021, we're building our base and reaching out to individuals and companies to help fund our grant program. I keep calling it a grant scholarship. It's not. It's a grant program. So that we can sponsor a male athlete of color, a female athlete, and a para athlete. And so with these three commitments, with committing to supporting these three individuals, we feel like it's one small step at helping to diversify and making triathlon as inclusive as possible, and diverse as possible. So that's our small goal, right? Eventually, we'd like to start an ambassador program, because we have some members in the group that are super active and they really believe in the cause, but we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. Like, we have to do it, one step at a time. So the grant program is number one. Ambassador program is number two. And then eventually we'd like to start teaming up with other organizations so that we can help sponsor their camps. And it could, from children's camps to para athlete camps, just to camps with people of color. Like, we want to be able to bring more diversity into the fold in every way that we can possibly think of. So long term, that's where we're at. Short term, like I said, it's that grant program and getting our feet off the ground this year.
Cool. And if I'm a member of the Facebook group, and I can attest.
Yes.
It's a very diverse group, very friendly, very safe, and very open.
Thank you. We try, and that's been our biggest thing. Like, we really didn't want to create a space where people were going to come in and just, wreak havoc and just complain and just be that type of space. We wanted it to be educational. We wanted it to be safe so that we can have those difficult conversations, and not be judged for our viewpoints. And honestly, not everybody has the same viewpoint, and that's okay. But we need to have those disagreeable discussions in a way that we still respect one another.
Yeah, and we all don't have to agree, but
exactly,
it's you can have intelligent debate.
Right. Exactly. So that's what we strive to do, and I'm glad that you say that, because we of course worry as the founding members, like, are we doing the right thing? Are we on the right track? We always second guess ourselves. So it is helpful to kind of get that kind of feedback. So thank you.
Oh, yes. And I'm waiting to sport my jersey and my running shirt once it arrives.
I know. So I was thinking about it this weekend when I did Texas 70.3, literally, because I was out there for an eternity, right? But at some point, I think it might have been my last loop. Because like I said, I'm an ambassador for CORE, and I was sporting the CORE kit, the team kit. And I pulled my kit back up over my shoulders because I had run most of the run with my kit unzipped and pulled down to my waist because it was hot, which is one of the reasons why I have such a bad sunburn. Because I did not plan well and use sunscreen. Don't anybody message Eric or me about the need to use sunscreen. I totally know that I'm supposed to do that. I just didn't, because I forgot so much about how to race. Like, so this is a side funny note. When I got into transition, Eric, when I got from the swim to the bike, I told my friend Laura Bradley, I was like, I ran in and I sat down and I sat there for a little bit. And I told Mike this too. I was like, I sat down, like, I thought, what do I do first? Like, I suddenly had a brain fart and I forgot what I was supposed to do during transition. I said, so I like put my socks on, and then I put one shoe on and I tightened it. And then I was like, oh, my helmet. So I put my helmet on. So mind you, I have my helmet and one shoe. And then I was like, I'm really hungry. So I ate a donut. And then I was like, oh, my nutrition. So I put my nutrition in mind you, one shoe, a helmet, a donut, and nutrition in my kit. And I was like, oh, I need my other shoe. Like, I was a hot mess. But anyway, so I'm on the run, kind of forgetting certain things, like sunscreen. And I thought to myself, I can't wait to get my race kit, because it's a racer back race kit, right? So it's sleeveless. And I can't wait to be on the run around people for them to see our logo and for them to see our tagline, promoting equality through sport. Yes. Like, that is what it's all about. And I can't wait for people to see that at a race. And then people will ask, what does that even mean? And we all start a conversation, because that's where it all starts, right? I love it. I got super jazzed, and I thought, yes, you would think I would run faster, and I just didn't. But I was super jazzed.
All right. So I'm in my 40s, and believe it or not, I'm actually finna enter my 50s this year. So what?
Yeah, me too.
Oh, see, there we go. That's something we have in common.
Yeah, I'll be 49 in December.
Oh, sweet. I'll be 50 in September.
Mm-hmm. Yay! Happy early birthday.
Thank you. So, what would be your message to people who say it's too late to start?
Wow, so I learned this lesson from my mother. and it'll all make sense in a minute. So mom started school when you're supposed to, start college when you're supposed to, out of high school, whatnot. Like many moms, she has kids. She puts her life on hold to take care of kids. That meant putting college on hold. Well, so my freshman year in high school, mom decides to go back to school. And there's a whole other season of change that I went through when mom decided to do that. But so mom works on her college degree, and it wasn't easy. She lost all of her credits from when she did it the first time around. Because mind you, she started at 18, 19, and now she's, in her 40s going to college, right? Trying to get an undergrad. But she perseveres. She's persistent. She struggles. Like a lot of really difficult things happen with my family. But mom pushes through, and she graduated with her bachelor's at 48. And it was that lesson that taught me you're never too old to do something new. And so I didn't start, distance running of any kind, that 5K. I did, around a 40-year mark. Mm-hmm. So, you're just never too old. Start slow. Take care of your body and listen to your body. Definitely hydrate. And I say that as the one person that doesn't hydrate nearly enough. I'll readily admit that, but definitely, take care of your body. And if you do it the right way, it can be done. My dad, when I started doing triathlon, he was motivated by me doing that. He started running short distances, and before he knew it, he was running a mile a day, and he's now 77. So, you're never too old to start something to make your body healthy and to get your life into a healthier bracket or a healthier lifestyle, exactly. Right? Even if it's just changing how you eat or cutting out sodas, small steps like that will lead to big things.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, as we get close to the end, what is a non-athletic, non-triathlon fact about you that most people don't know?
Oh, man, I'm so open with what I do. It's ridiculous. I've had people say, man, you can burp and you'll post it on social media. Let's see, something non-triathlon related that people don't know about me. I mean, I've even posted this, but it's something that I think is really funny because this is so not my personality. Because my personality is just kind of really kind of in your face and sometimes rough around the edges. But I was president of my sorority for 2 years, which typically does not happen. But my sorority was so little that we almost, literally almost lost we almost had to shut down.
Oh, wow.
Because I think we only had 8 members at one point. And I remember having the tough conversation with our board. Is this something that we're going to commit to? And our sorority had been around that university for decades. So this was, you talk about pressure. But I was like, is this something we're going to commit to doing? Are we going to commit to signing up new members? Or is it just too much and we're just going to quietly ride off into the sunset? And they were like, I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure. And I said, look, I think we can do it. We're going to have to work hard. We're going to have to bust it. But I really think we can find good people here that, we're members of the sorority. We could do this. But yeah, that's probably a thing that most people would look at me and be like, you were in a sorority? Because I just, I'm not typically the bubbly, butterflies and rainbows type personality. I'm very raw and very real and very, I kind of look at things pragmatically, if that makes sense. And so sometimes the truth is very difficult to hear, but I think a lot of people need to hear it. And so, so that just kind of throws people for a loop sometimes. But I love my Delta Zeta sorority, but yeah, they were just Okay.
All right, Lali. So, what is next for you? Are you training for any races?
I have 4 70.3 races scheduled for 2021. So I got done with Texas yesterday. I have Lubbock 70.3 in June. Yeah, in June. I have Kerrville 70.3. It's a local race here in Texas also in September, I think is when it is. And then I have, no, that's in August. And then I have Waco 70.3 in October. So I'll have like a 70.3, a month off, a 70.3, a month off, a 70.3. And then I go have Thanksgiving and eat all the things and then Christmas and celebrate my 49th birthday and do like I've been talking with a travel agent, and my plan is to take some kind of vacation at some point. So it'll eventually come. But yeah, that's my plan. Race, 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 race. And I hate to admit it, but I really honestly think, even though I deferred my Ironman Texas entry to 2022, I'm a little bit feeling like this is probably my last year doing Ironman sanctioned events for a while. I mean, I've been at this since, 2016. So
Okay.
I'm a little bit tired.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. If you don't want to burn out,
No,
you, you,
right. I definitely don't want to burn out, and I can feel it coming. I can definitely feel it coming.
you just
But man, the feeling of crossing those finish lines are so great. Like, oh, I kind of like drag myself through the training again just so that I can get that feeling.
well,
But
you're just gonna
oh,
find a
it's
new
exhausting.
challenge. That's what that's about.
That's well, honestly, I said earlier in the interview, and I've told this to people, like I haven't returned to marathon running since I discovered triathlon, but I kind of miss
Hmm?
running. Like I talked about it with and just grabbing my shoes and going out and running. Yeah, yeah.
See.
So I think that's what's coming up next.
Well, Lolly, I had
Thank you. I
awesome
really enjoyed
conversation
this.
with
This
you
is
this
really
evening.
great. It's so easy to do this with you because you're such like you ask really great questions, man. It's really great. Mhm.
Oh, thank you. So, if someone wanted to get in contact with
So
you,
a couple of
how can they
ways.
do that?
If they wanted to get in touch with me specifically about the foundation, they can go to SBR4E Foundation.com, or it could even be Swim Bike Run for Equality Foundation.com. Off the top of my head, I can't remember right now. And then they can email us through that, or they can find me on Instagram at it's so random Instagram at lollycakes33, and they can message me that way, or they can find me on Facebook. They can search for Lali Castellanos. My profile's public, so they can find me that way too. Hmm.
Cool. Again, thank you
Sure,
again for being on the
anytime.
show. All right.
You
Have a
too.
wonderful evening. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye. And that's it for this episode of No Gimmicks Just Sweat. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for your support, and until next time, keep crushing your goals.